Good morning. The Employees Provident Fund EPF Special Withdrawal Facility will involve one single payment only, which will be credited into the depositor's savings account. Members who wish to withdraw their savings under this facility can do so through its iAccount web portal, which can also be accessed via its mobile application beginning April 1st. In a statement released on Tuesday, the EPF announced that applications for the special withdrawal are open to members under 55 years old from April 1st to 30th, while the payment would be made from April 20th. The statement also said joint accounts or accounts registered under the name of companies are not allowed, and members could check the status of their applications from April 9th through the same portal. The EPF added members who wish to withdraw their savings are encouraged to check the balance of their retirement savings via iAccount mobile application or EPF kiosks, and the maximum withdrawal allowed is 10,000 ringgit, while the minimum is 50 ringgit. Members also need to fully use up the balance in Account 2 before accessing their Account 1, and they have to maintain a minimum balance of 100 ringgit in their account. The EPF also reminded members to consider securing their future income and only withdraw their savings when absolutely necessary. The Health Minister will explain in detail the questions raised by several parties regarding the appointment of MySejahtera Berhad as the licensee of the MySejahtera application in the Dewan Negara this Thursday. Khairi Jamaluddin said he had requested Senate President Tan Sri Rais Yatim to allow a motion on the matter to be debated as the issue involving people's personal data was important.
Jadi saya akan jawablah semua soalan di Dewan Negara nanti. Tak ada isu bagi saya. Saya tidak ada apa-apa nak disembunyikan. Mungkin mereka yang tak tahu tentang benda ni dan mungkin tak baca sepenuhnya isu ini terus bangkitkan isu yang sama. Ya. Tapi tak apalah, saya faham ini isu penting melibatkan data pribadi dan sebagainya. Jadi lebih baik saya jawab dalam Dewan.
Speaking to reporters during his visit to Port Dickson Hospital on Tuesday, Khairi also dismissed claims that the country has become a surveillance state. He also reiterated his statement that the appointment of KPI Soft Malaysia Sendian Berhad, which is the MySejahtera app developer, was implemented by the National Security Council, NSC. He added several companies had been invited to make their presentations, and the NSC chose the company, which has now been rebranded as Antomo Malaysia Sendian Berhad before it gave the license to MySJ. Various parties have urged the government to clarify the alleged involvement of MySJ, which is a private entity, in the acquisition of the MySejahtera application. Among the issues raised was the appointment of MySJ through a direct negotiation mechanism and not via an open tender. In a related development, Khairi revealed the government would still maintain the use of MySejahtera for the next month or two until the COVID-19 situation has stabilized. Moving on, Malaysia and Qatar have agreed to mutually recognize each other's COVID-19 vaccination certificates as part of the two countries' post-pandemic recovery efforts. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri Yaakob said the two countries also agreed to integrate Malaysia's MySejahtera and Qatar's Ahmad applications.
Kita bersetuju untuk saling mengiktiraf sijil vaksinasi Malaysia dan Qatar ini. Dan kita juga bersetuju untuk mengintegrasikan aplikasi MySejahtera dan juga Teras, yaitu aplikasi Qatar ini.
Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri said this in a press conference with the Malaysian media at the St. Regis Hotel in Doha on Tuesday before departing for Dubai in the United Arab Emirates for a 3-day official visit to the country until March 31st. He added these arrangements were reached at his meeting with the Emir of Qatar, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, earlier at Emiri Dewan, the administrative palace in the country's capital. In the discussion, he proposed to the Emir for Petronas to be given the opportunity to be involved in the Northfield expansion project, which spans 3 phases, as well as several other proposals to explore investment opportunities in Qatar from Malaysian companies. He also said during his 3-day official visit to Qatar, Perbadanan Prima Malaysia had presented a strategic investment proposal worth 8.1 billion ringgit to Qatar Investment Authority. Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri also expressed his appreciation to the Qatari government for allowing University Kebangsaan Malaysia to open its branch in Doha. Prior to the meeting, the Prime Minister was accorded an official welcoming ceremony and was greeted by the Emir upon arrival at 11 a.m. local time. This was Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri's first official visit to the country after being sworn in as Prime Minister in August last year. Now, despite the special one-off recruitment, the Education Ministry MOE is still facing a shortage of English and Islamic education teachers. Senior Education Minister Dr. Radzi Jidin told the Dewan Negara on Tuesday to address this problem. His ministry will introduce the subject cluster method for future intakes to fill teaching vacancies. Dr. Radzi said the approach was adopted to provide more opportunities for graduates to apply based on their bachelor's degree mapping with the suitable subjects. He added that graduates with certain areas of specialization can apply to fill vacancies in other subjects categorized under the same cluster. He also said currently the number of Bachelor of Education graduates for English as well as Islamic education were very limited, and his ministry was looking into other approaches to ensure the country has enough teachers for the two subjects.
KPM akan terus meneliti dan berbincang dengan agensi pusat bagi mencari kaedah dan pendekatan terbaik bagi mengisi lebih banyak kekosongan guru dari semasa ke semasa. Terima kasih.
He said this during question and answer session at the Dewan Negara on Tuesday. Today, there are still 4,932 vacancies available under the special one-off initiative that was rolled out by the government last year to resolve the shortage of teachers throughout the country. So far, the Education Service Commission, SPP, has successfully recruited 13,770 individuals as Grade GD41 Education Service Officers. From the total, a total of 13,255 new teachers have been posted to their respective schools. In other news, the number of bankruptcy cases due to credit card debt has decreased from over 1,000 cases in 2017 to 438 cases last year. First, Deputy Finance Minister Dr. Muhammed Abdullah said the figure only involved 0.005% of the total number of major credit card holders.
Bagi mengawal tahap keberhutang pemegang kad kredit, Bank Negara Malaysia BNM telah memperkenalkan beberapa syarat pemberian kad kredit untuk memastikan hanya pengguna yang berkemampuan sahaja diberikan kad kredit.
Datuk Shah also told the Senate on Tuesday that financial institutions were not allowed to increase cardholders' credit limits without obtaining their prior consent. He also said financial institutions were required to consider the situation of credit cardholders who face difficulties in repaying loans due to health, unemployment or other reasonable reasons and offer alternative repayment plans that suit the credit cardholders' financial circumstances and situation. In addition, cardholders who face financial problems and difficulties in repaying loans can contact the Credit Counselling and Management Agency, AKPK, for advice. 72 Ramadan Bazaar locations involving 5,000 stalls are expected to open around the federal capital during this fasting month, starting this Sunday. Federal Territories Minister Datuk Seri Shahidan Kasim said the operation hours of the bazaars are from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. According to Datuk Seri Shahidan, the ministry is targeting the involvement of more than 10,000 volunteers or community ambassadors to monitor, advise and remind the people on compliance with the standard operating procedures SOPs to curb the spread of COVID-19. He added that Kuala Lumpur City Hall DBKL has also identified and created several strategic locations to reorganize hawkers around the city to enable them centralize their business in a more systematic and conducive space. The reorganization of hawkers would be introduced to all areas in Kuala Lumpur to ensure residents around these areas are not disrupted by hawkers carrying out their business. More local news later in the bulletin, but first, Russia and Ukraine negotiators sit down for peace talks in Istanbul. This and more when we return. foreign front, Russian and Ukrainian negotiators have ended the first direct talks in more than 2 weeks in Istanbul, with Moscow saying it was ready to fundamentally cut back military activity near the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv and the northern city of Chernihiv. Deputy Finance Minister Alexander Fomin said the move was meant to increase trust in talks aimed at ending the fighting as negotiators met face-to-face on Tuesday after several rounds of failed talks.
Украине гарантия безопасности переходит в практическую плоскость с учетом обсужденных в ходе сегодняшней встречи принципов. Министерством обороны Российской Федерации в целях повышения взаимного доверия и создания необходимых условий для дальнейшего ведения переговоров и достижения конечной цели согласования и подписания вышеуказанного.
Meanwhile, on the Ukrainian side, negotiators said they were willing to agree to a neutral status, one of Russia's key demands, if an international agreement under which other countries would serve as guarantors of Ukraine's security would come into place. A meeting between the Ukrainian and Russian presidents is also possible. However, before any final agreement with Russia, there needs to be a full peace across Ukraine. The Russian invasion of Ukraine has shook financial markets as Southeast Asia braces for higher prices of crude oil and natural gas costs, while the escalating geopolitical tensions are expected to exacerbate high inflation and supply chain bottlenecks. While some Malaysians are unaware of the conflict in Europe, the consequences of Russia's aggressiveness will soon be felt by the average Malaysian sooner or later. Our intern Adrina Lee files in this report.
Following the invasion, the whole economic and geopolitical environment has been thrown into disarray. The escalating conflict has not only affected Ukraine and Russia, but the whole continent of Europe, NATO, and the rest of the world, as it is a battle between two superpowers, with Europe on one side and Russia on the other. For geostrategist Professor Dr. Azmi Hassan, while the war may appear to be distanced from Malaysia, the global economy is intertwined, and any conflict of such scale will be disastrous to Malaysia and the rest of the world.
And even though Malaysia and Ukraine, Eastern Europe is far away, but our economy, our geopolitics are intertwined. The whole world are intertwined with each other. So the war will not be only detrimental to Europe, but as can be said, it will affect the whole world in terms of the economy, in terms of geopolitical stability.
For Bank Islam Malaysia's chief economist Dr. Muhammad Abdul Rashid, Malaysia should be able to benefit from the rise of the oil crude prices due to the Ukraine invasion. He, however, said the country may suffer inflation and the government should not remove subsidies as it will amplify the level of price hikes.
It depends on the nature of their economy. In particular, for Malaysia, we are deemed to be net oil exporting countries, and therefore, generally speaking, Malaysia should be the one who will be benefiting from the rise in crude oil prices. Especially for the government, it will provide more coffers, and therefore would opens up a lot of fiscal space for the government to expand more. But other regions that experiencing net oil importing status, then I think the impact on inflationary pressures could be quite prevalent. So it is quite mixed depending on the status in terms of whether they are net oil exporting countries or otherwise.
The invasion had drawn widespread international condemnation from countries across the world, with over 100 United Nations member states voting to demand the withdrawal of Russian troops from Ukraine. China, however, abstained from the vote rather than backing Moscow as it supports Russia in its hostility to NATO. During the early weeks of the conflict, Moscow had reportedly seized a swath of Ukraine's southern Zaporizhia, Kherson and Mykolaiv regions, while a series of Russian strikes continues around the city area. Ukraine, on the other hand, has rejected Russian calls to surrender the port city of Mariupol, while a new curfew has been announced in Kyiv after deadly attacks killed 8 in the capital on Sunday. The constant shelling of Ukraine's cities and towns has resulted in more than 900 civilian fatalities, devastated civilian infrastructures, and have forced more than 3.5 million people to flee the country, resulting in a new humanitarian catastrophe in Europe. In comparison to Ukraine's 200,000-strong standing forces, Russia has roughly 900,000 active military personnel. With minimal progress being made in the ongoing peace talks, it is believed that the war between the two nations would drag on, and the destructions will be further expanded as Russia shows no indications of withdrawing its troops from Ukraine. In the end, no one benefits from the war as it has never contributed to creating anything. Both sides will only suffer from fatalities and penalties, and even if one wins, it will only be a semblance of victory. Adrenaline for Nightline TV3.
In other news, British police on Tuesday said that an initial 20 fines would be issued over gatherings in Boris Johnson's offices and residence that broke coronavirus lockdown rules, sparking fresh calls for the Prime Minister to resign. This after police action confirmed for the first time that unprecedented regulations to protect the nation from COVID-19 were broken by officials at the heart of the government that designed them. Recipients of the fines will not be identified, but Downing Street has previously said it will reveal if the Prime Minister receives one. Further fines were also possible as authorities continue to work through evidence provided to them by the internal investigation. Police are investigating 12 gatherings held at Downing Street and the Cabinet Office in 2020 and 2021 after an internal inquiry said Johnson's staff enjoyed alcohol-fueled parties, with the British leader attending some of the events himself. Tsitsipas joins Fritz in round of 16. Action from the Miami Open right after this short break. The Miami Open, top American player Taylor Fritz advanced to the round 16 after beating Tommy Paul in straight sets. Fritz took about 1.5 hours to pass through his countryman 7-6, 6-4 at the grandstand court at Miami. The 11th-seeded American will face Miomir Kecmanovic of Serbia in the next round. Joining Fritz was Stefanos Tsitsipas. The 3rd-seeded Greek cruised into round 16 after winning over Alex de Minaur in straight sets. He beat the 25th-seeded Aussie 6-4, 6-3 in 90 minutes. Tsitsipas will play against number 14 seed Carlos Alcaraz Garcia of Spain in the next round. In the women's category, Poland's 2nd seed Iga Świątek raced into the quarterfinals following a straight sets victory over the United States' Coco Gauff. Świątek, who will become the new women's world #1 after Ashley Barty's retirement, earned her 14th straight win after claiming a 6-3, 6-1 victory. Also in the next round was Paula Badosa. The world #6 advanced to her first Miami Open quarterfinals after defeating 16-year-old wildcard Linda Frevitova 6-2, 6-3 in the 4th round. The Spaniard will face 16th seed Jessica Pegula after the American booked her spot after Angelina Kalinina retired down 6-love. After this short break, 132 million ringgit project senior advisor remanded for 4 days. Thank you for staying with us. The Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission MACC has obtained a 4-day remand against a 36-year-old man suspected of being involved in corruption in connection with a 132 million ringgit project involving an automotive institute. Magistrate Shahwira Abdul Halim granted the remand order on Tuesday morning to facilitate investigations into the case by the graft buster. It was learned that the suspect is a senior advisor to a company which is believed to have offered 5 million ringgit in bribes as an inducement to secure a project. He said the suspect was arrested under Section 17, Bracket A of the MACC Act. MACC Special Operations Division Senior Director Datuk Tan Kang Sai also confirmed the arrest and remand order. The court also extended a remand order against another suspect with a Datuk title for 4 days, beginning Tuesday until April 2nd. Last Thursday, 9 individuals, including a Datuk, were remanded to assist in a corruption case related to a project involving the Automotive Institute. The same court granted a remand order of between 3 and 6 days against all 9 suspects aged between 34 and 58. 4 of them were company owners, while the other 4 suspects comprised a medical consultant, an accountant, a company director and chief executive, as well as chief operations officer of a company. 2 parang-wielding robbers who were caught on video robbing an elderly woman at Bandar Tun Razak Cheras on Saturday have been arrested by police in 2 separate raids in the Klang Valley. Cheras District Police Chief ACP Muhammad Izzam Jaafar said that police nabbed the first suspect at about 12:15 a.m. on Sunday at a house at an undisclosed location, which led police to the second suspect, who was arrested at 11 a.m. on Monday. Itzam said police recovered 5,300 ringgit from the man, along with other items related to the robbery. He said the 29 and 34-year-old suspects have 18 past records, each for various crimes including robbery. He said with the arrest, police have solved 6 robbery cases that occurred in Cheras and Dangwangi, and the suspects are being held under a remand order for investigations. On Saturday at about 9 a.m, the 2 suspects who came on a motorcycle allegedly held up an elderly woman in front of her daughter's house in Bandar Tun Razak before snatching 2 gold necklaces. The robbery was captured on video by a neighbour and was shared widely on social media. And lastly, Singapore's top court has just dismissed the application of Malaysian Nagendran K. Dhammalingam's appeal against his execution. The court delivered its verdict on Tuesday after reserving its judgment on his March 1st hearing. Nagendran, who is intellectually disabled, was arrested in 2009 for trafficking a small amount of heroin into the city-state and handed a mandatory death sentence the following year. The 34-year-old was originally scheduled to be hanged in November, but the case had drawn international attention and sparked criticism, including from the European Union and British billionaire Richard Branson. This was his last-ditch appeal against the death sentence, with his family saying they were devastated and shocked by the ruling. And that's it for Nightline this time around. As we wrap up, let's take a look at Salento, a municipality in Colombia, which is characterized by its traditional architectural beauty, its mountains and beautiful landscapes, and was one of the places that inspired the producers of the Oscar-winning animated movie Encanto. I'm Muhammed, Ahmad Hamdan. Thank you for tuning in and take care.